There's a very specific kind of fear that doesn't feel cinematic. It doesn't feel like monsters or demons or ghosts. It feels real. The kind of fear that happens quietly. The sound of gravel outside your window at 2 a.m. Your dog staring into the darkness without barking. A motion light suddenly turning on in the backyard. The feeling that someone is standing just beyond the glass, watching. At the time of this video posting, I will be seeing Pig Destroyer perform Prowler in the Yard in its entirety for the album's 25th anniversary. And honestly, there may not be a more fitting title for tonight's episode, because tonight, we are talking about prowlers. The people, the things that wait outside. I'm Ashley, and this is Unsettling Stories. Before we get into the stories tonight, I think it's important to understand why prowler stories affect people so deeply. Because unlike a lot of horror, the fear is possible. Prowler calls are incredibly common. Late night reports of people peeking through windows, walking through backyards, trying door handles, standing beneath bedroom windows. And what makes those stories terrifying isn't violence, it's anticipation. The idea that someone chose your house, that someone spent time watching you without you ever realizing it. There's actually a psychological term connected to some of these behaviors: voyeurism, predatory surveillance, peeping Tom behavior. But those clinical terms somehow make it feel less horrifying than it actually is. Because at the center of every prowler story, there is one terrifying realization. Someone has been closer to you than you thought, and sometimes they've been there for a long time. A woman posted her story online several years ago. At first, people thought it was fake. Then others started responding with stories almost identical to it. She lived alone in a small suburban home. Nothing isolated, nothing dramatic, just an ordinary neighborhood where nothing really ever happened. One night around 1:30 in the morning, she heard tapping against her bedroom window. Not loud, just tap, 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 tap. And at first she ignored it, probably a branch, but then it happened again. Slow, intentional. Tap, tap, tap. She sat up in bed and listened. Silence. Then, the motion light outside switched on. Now, most people would probably look. She said every instinct in her body told her not to. But eventually, she turned her head toward the window. And standing in the yard, partially hidden beside a tree, was a man. Motionless, just staring directly at her bedroom. Not waving, not moving closer, just watching. She froze. And the worst part wasn't that he was there. It was the feeling that he had been there for a while. Maybe minutes, maybe longer. She grabbed her phone to call the police. And when she looked back, he was gone. No footsteps, no running, nothing. Just an empty yard illuminated by the motion light. Police searched the area, but found no one. But over the next few weeks, it kept happening. The motion light turning on, shapes near the fence line, tapping sounds after midnight, until one night she woke up to find muddy footprints directly beneath her bedroom window, facing inward. Sometimes the most terrifying stories aren't paranormal at all. Sometimes they come in the mail. In 2014, a family in Westfield, New Jersey purchased what they believed was their dream home. But shortly after moving in, they began receiving anonymous letters. The writer called himself the Watcher. The letters described the house in disturbing detail, mentioning the children, renovations, mentioning watching the family through the windows. One letter asked, Have they found what's in the walls yet? Another claimed the house had been watched for generations. The family became terrified. Neighbors were questioned. Police investigated. But the identity of the watcher was never confirmed. And what disturbed people most wasn't just the letters themselves. It was the possibility that someone nearby had spent months, maybe even years, quietly observing the home, watching routines, watching lights turn on and off, watching people sleep. There is something deeply horrifying about realizing your life may have been visible to a stranger the entire time. There's a phenomenon called frogging, and if you have never heard that term before, you probably won't forget it after tonight. Frogging refers to people secretly living inside someone else's home. Attics, crawl spaces, basements, storage areas, sometimes for days, sometimes for months. There are documented cases of homeowners hearing footsteps at night, food disappearing, objects moving slightly, only to eventually discover someone had been living inside the walls of their home, watching them, waiting for them to sleep before coming out. One woman discovered a man crawling down from a hidden attic compartment late at night after noticing food missing from her kitchen. Another family found makeshift bedding above their garage ceiling. And maybe the most horrifying part of this, most victims only discovered the person accidentally, which means there are probably cases that were never discovered at all. Imagine hearing a noise in your attic tonight. Now imagine realizing it's been there for weeks. Not every story has an explanation, and this is where prowler stories start becoming something else entirely. Across forums, 911 transcripts, and urban legends, there are repeated descriptions of figures standing outside homes at night. Tall silhouettes, people who don't move naturally. Figures seen standing at the edge of tree lines. People knocking on doors and disappearing seconds later. Some witnesses describe eyes reflecting strangely in the dark. Others claim the figures mimicked voices. One story described a child waking up in the middle of the night and calmly telling their mother, "The tall man outside wants to come in." When the mother checked the window, there was supposedly someone standing near their swing set, perfectly still, just watching the house. Maybe it was a person, maybe it wasn't. But I think the reason these stories stay with us is because they touch something ancient in the human brain. The fear that the darkness outside your shelter isn't empty. That something is waiting just beyond the firelight, watching. Most of us will never know what the noises outside our homes really are. A branch against the siding, an animal moving through the yard, a stranger passing by, or someone standing silently beyond the porch light, waiting for us to notice them. And maybe that uncertainty is the scariest part. Because tonight, while you're laying in bed, you'll probably hear something outside. And just for a moment, you'll wonder. Good night, and lock your doors.